In a small Georgia town, 19-year-old Elijah Carter sat on his bunk in a county jail cell, staring at a faded photo of his mother. He'd been behind bars for nearly a year, charged with a robbery he didn't commit. His alibi was ignored, the court-appointed lawyer barely listened, and the trial felt like a formality. Still, Elijah held on to hope. Barely. Life in jail was slow and punishing. Elijah missed home-cooked meals, his mother's hugs, and the freedom to dream about college and music. He'd always been a good student, helping his little sister with homework, working after school at the local grocery. All of that had vanished with one mistake by the system. In the early days of his incarceration, letters trickled in from family and a few friends, but as months dragged on, most stopped writing. His mother, determined but exhausted, came to every hearing and visit. "I won't stop fighting for you," she whispered, holding his hand through glass. Elijah read to pass the time. He wrote poems and raps on scraps of paper, pouring his pain and frustration into words. He drew strength from music, especially Snoop Dogg's lyrics about struggle, survival, and hope. Snoop's music was his lifeline, playing in his head when nights felt too long. One day, desperate and inspired by stories of artists helping fans, Elijah wrote a letter to Snoop Dogg. He didn't expect a reply, just needed to share his truth. In careful handwriting, he described his case, his innocence, and his dream of one day telling his story through music. The letter made its way from the jail mailbox, through staff and volunteers, finally landing in the hands of someone on Snoop's team. It was almost lost in a pile of fan mail, but the raw honesty in Elijah's words stood out. Snoop's manager read the letter aloud at a team meeting. Snoop listened quietly, then asked to see it himself. As he read, Snoop shook his head in anger and sadness. "How many more kids out there like this?" he asked. Without hesitation, Snoop posted about Elijah's story on his social media, calling out for lawyers, advocates, and supporters. "We gotta help this young king," he wrote. "No one should lose their life to a broken system." The post went viral overnight. Comments poured in, some from celebrities, others from people who'd survived similar injustice. News outlets reached out, and organizations focused on wrongful convictions started looking into Elijah's case. Elijah's mother saw the post on her neighbor's phone, tears streaming down her face as she realized people were finally listening. She called Elijah during his scheduled phone time, voice trembling with hope. "Baby, Snoop Dogg is fighting for you now." For Elijah, it felt surreal. He wasn't forgotten after all. As news spread and support swelled, the jail staff treated him with new respect. Inmates slapped him on the back, whispering encouragement. "You got the whole world watching now," one said. But the battle was just beginning. Elijah's letter had struck a chord, but turning sympathy into freedom would take more than a hashtag. Still, for the first time in months, Elijah dared to believe. His voice mattered, and help was on the way. Within days, Elijah's story was everywhere. National media picked up Snoop Dogg's posts, and hashtags like Free Elijah trended across platforms. Civil rights organizations sent investigators and lawyers to Georgia, determined to review every detail of the case. Snoop Dogg didn't just post and move on. He called Elijah's mother, offering financial help for legal bills and promising to use his platform until justice was served. "Your son's story is the story of too many," Snoop said. "We gotta shine a light." Public rallies formed outside the courthouse. Locals and strangers held signs. "Justice for Elijah," "Innocence Matters," and "Listen to our youth." Celebrities tweeted support, and musicians wrote songs inspired by Elijah's words. Volunteers helped with research, uncovering critical evidence ignored at trial. An alibi witness came forward, and a timeline of the alleged crime finally began to make sense. A new lawyer, funded by donations from across the country, filed a motion to reopen Elijah's case. Snoop visited Elijah's town, meeting with community leaders, pastors, and students. At a candlelight vigil, he spoke passionately about justice, second chances, and the power of speaking up. "We can't just talk about change, we gotta make it," he told the crowd. Elijah's mother became a spokesperson for families fighting wrongful convictions. She appeared on talk shows, shared her son's poems, and called on lawmakers to reform the justice system. Her courage inspired others to come forward with stories of their own. Inside jail, Elijah felt the movement grow. Letters from supporters filled his cell. He wrote back as much as he could, thanking people for believing in him. Each message was a lifeline, a reminder that he was more than a number in a system. As legal proceedings dragged on, Snoop organized benefit concerts and social media campaigns. All proceeds funded the Innocence Project and legal support for Elijah and others like him. The story sparked national conversations, on news panels, in classrooms, and across dinner tables, about fairness, racism, and the cost of a broken system. But Elijah's future was still uncertain. The process moved slowly, and setbacks stung. Yet the movement around him was now too big to ignore. For the first time, the system was forced to answer for its mistakes. And for Elijah, every new day brought a little more hope that freedom was within reach. After months of activism, Elijah's case returned to court. This time, the gallery was packed, not just with family, but with journalists, supporters, and national figures. The new legal team presented evidence that had been overlooked. Camera footage, cell phone records, and credible witnesses who could place Elijah far from the scene. Elijah himself testified, his voice steady as he explained the events of that day. He spoke about his dreams, his pain, and how he'd found purpose in fighting for justice. Not just for himself, but for others who had no voice. Snoop Dogg attended the hearing, sitting quietly beside Elijah's mother, squeezing her hand when she grew anxious. Reporters captured every moment, and social media buzzed with updates. The prosecution, under intense public scrutiny, admitted to mistakes. The judge agreed to a full review, and, after tense days of deliberation, the verdict was clear. Elijah Carter was innocent. Cheers erupted in the courtroom. Elijah's mother wept as she hugged her son for the first time in nearly a year. Snoop joined the celebration, his support having made the impossible possible. Elijah's release became national news. He was met by supporters, signs, and cameras. News anchors told his story as one of injustice overturned and the power of community. Action. Elijah spoke at a press conference, thanking everyone. From Snoop to strangers who'd written letters. "I'm free because people believed in me. Let's keep fighting for everyone who's still waiting for justice," he said. Snoop and Elijah appeared together on talk shows, sharing their journey and calling for broader reform. Donations flooded. Organizations dedicated to overturning wrongful convictions. Elijah was offered scholarships and jobs. Colleges reached out, and music producers offered studio time. Yet Elijah's focus was clear. He wanted to give back, to help others who were still behind bars for crimes they didn't commit. The victory was bittersweet. Elijah could never get back the time lost, but his voice was now amplified. He became a symbol of hope, proof that change was possible when people came together. Snoop's involvement shifted the national conversation, inspiring other artists and public figures to use their influence for justice. The movement was now larger than one case. It was a call to action. Months after Elijah's release, the Free Elijah movement had grown into a national coalition. Together with Snoop Dogg, Elijah launched the Justice Not Chains initiative, funding legal aid, policy reform, and support for families affected by wrongful incarceration. They traveled the country, speaking at universities, rallies, and legislative hearings. Elijah told his story with raw honesty, urging lawmakers to change sentencing laws and increase accountability in the justice system. Snoop used his platform to highlight other cases, calling on his peers to get involved. Musicians, actors, and athletes joined the movement, raising funds and awareness. The coalition helped secure freedom for dozens of wrongfully imprisoned people. Each new release was a celebration. Families reunited, futures reclaimed, and the promise of justice restored. Elijah started recording music again, using his lyrics to process pain and inspire others. His first track, Unbroken Chains, became an anthem for the movement, played at marches and vigils across the country. The story inspired policy changes in several states. Lawmakers passed new laws for fair trials, improved public defense, and compensation for those proven innocent after serving time. Snoop and Elijah's friendship remained strong, a testament to the bond formed by fighting for what's right. Snoop continued to mentor Elijah, encouraging him to stay humble, driven, and focused on helping others. For Elijah, life after prison wasn't easy, but he found strength in community. He started a support group for exonerees, offering guidance, resources, and hope. Every anniversary of his release, Elijah and his mother held a community event, a mix of music, food, and storytelling, reminding everyone that freedom is a right worth fighting for. The home where Elijah grew up, once filled with worry and loss, now hosted gatherings of friends, activists, and neighbors. And in cities and towns across America, Elijah's journey was a reminder. Sometimes a single voice, amplified by compassion and courage, can change the course of history.